30 years ago, I used to work with Michael Krüger. And it's so good to see him here again. It's a long time. But you look younger than me. But you're a writer. So makes a difference probably. Good evening, guten Abend, buonasera. It's wonderful to be here. We are going to talk about a project. When I first heard about it, I thought maybe there are too many awards around. But then we discussed it and said there's not enough awards for people in publishing. Publishing is a passionate profession. And I think we have to showcase the people who dedicate their life to publishing. It can be challenging. You never make a lot of money, but it's very rewarding. Dear Luca De Michelis, dear Flavio, Gregori, dear Michael Krüger, I'm excited, as you can feel. Yeah, it's so good to see so many people who have influenced my career, yeah, whom I tried to follow as a publisher. Now, I never ended up as a publisher. Now, for 20 years, I'm with the book fair. So maybe I failed. Maybe I should have stayed with Michael and learned more of you. So, I want to hand over immediately to our dear friend from Venice. I think it's a very wonderful idea. You initiated it, so the stage is yours.
Thank you. The Cesare De Michelis International Award for Publishing is something we started 3 years ago. It was my family, it was Marsilio, which is also family, the Feltrinelli group, which has become family in the last few years. And we, of course, wanted to remember my father, but also to celebrate, as Juergen just said, this amazing job that is publishing. And we wanted to create an award for international publishing that actually could remain in the future. And so I'm really honored today to be here and that we started this, I hope, long-standing collaboration with the Frankfurt Buchmesse to stage the announcement of the winner of the award for next year. The award, of course, will also remain in Venice, and we are creating this bridge between Frankfurt, which is certainly the most important international event for publishing in the world, and Venice, which is where actually publishing started back with Aldo Manuzio, and we feel proud to continue this job there. My father used to say that reading books, writing books, reviewing books, and publishing books, that's all he has been doing all his life. And doing it in Venice had a particular meaning for him. We have, as I said, we are at the fourth year. We had a number of winners of this award in the past. The first one was Naveen Kishore, that is here, and I thank for being here. The second one was Michael Krüger, that will also discuss with us today. And then Fiona McRae in spring this year. And we are here also to announce the winner for next year, but we're announcing it today, Luiz Schwarcz, that is here with us, and please welcome him with an applause. But before before having Luiz speaking to us about what publishing meant for him and have a discussion with Michael, Also, Flavio Gregori has been a partner since the very beginning. Foscari was immediately very enthusiastic with the Venice Foundation and supported this effort from the very beginning. And they hosted for the last 3 years and hopefully for the future in this amazing event, which is Crossword of Civilization, but he will tell you about it. Thank you very much for being here, and again, to Flavio.
Well, it's a great honor and privilege to be here today on behalf of the festival Incroci di civiltà, and I would like to express my deepest gratitude to the Frankfurter Buchmesse, to its director Juergen for graciously hosting this event. And I would like also to thank Luca for this opportunity, very much so, and if I may, Francesca Varotto for her coordination in bringing this initiative to life. I also wish to congratulate Luiz Schwarcz, the recipient of the next Cesare De Michelis Award, and we eagerly look forward to presenting him with this well-deserved award on April the 2nd, 2025, during the opening day of the festival in Venice. Just a few words, I won't take any more time, about this event, Incroci di civiltà, which is a literary festival that we started in 2008, marking 60 years since the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations. And the festival was created as a platform where international authors could come together in Venice to discuss literature, human rights, their personal journeys as human beings and writers, and the vision of civilization. And I would like to say that the name of the festival, Incroci di civiltà, meaning crossroads or crossings, if you like, of civilization, was carefully chosen as a response to the heated debate surrounding the concept of a so-called clash of civilizations, which, in our opinion, is an oxymoron or a contradiction in terms, because where there is a clash, civilization disappears. So the festival aims to offer a constructive reflection on the relationship, on a difficult relationship between cultural differences and the pressing challenge of defining a universal concept of humanity, which is an issue that remains crucial in our world today. The festival began as an academic initiative of the School of Foreign Languages at Foscari University, to which I belong. It's one of the oldest schools of this kind in the world, and it's renowned for its dedication to the study of languages, literatures, and cultures. And we believe deeply and sincerely that education holds the potential to save the world or to contribute to saving the world. And this same belief also inspires enlightened publishers as Luiz Schwarcz and our previous award recipients, Naveen Kishore, Michael Krüger, and Fiona McRae, who dedicate the work to showing the world that it can be a better place. So I'm honored here to be representing the Incroci di Civiltà Festival and the University of Venice as we celebrate international publishing, and together we hope to promote understanding, respect, and the belief in a more peaceful future. So thank you very much.
Luiz, please come on stage.
Companhia sempre foi uma empresa que eu admirei muito. Companhia sempre foi uma empresa que eu admirei muito, sempre prezou muito pela qualidade dos seus produtos.
Todo dia é uma aventura diferente, porque tem sempre muitos livros acontecendo em muitas etapas diferentes.
É um dos trabalhos mais bonitos do mundo.
A companhia começou com recursos muito baixos, teve os seus primeiros dias em 2 fundos de quintal. Fundo de quintal da minha casa, com uma funcionária apenas, e o fundo de quintal da gráfica dos meus pais, mas se transformou numa das grandes editoras do país, talvez o maior grupo editorial do país. E dentro de casa, para o mundo, né? É uma empresa que se posiciona politicamente.
a companhia tem um compromisso com a educação no Brasil e, portanto, um compromisso com um país que seja mais republicano, mais plural, mais inclusivo e, assim sendo, mais democrático, né?
One minute, please. There is a big mess here in my papers. Wow, wow, wow. Okay. First a disclaimer. Those that know me are accustomed with my horrible accent and mistakes in English. I have an excuse. I am a son of an Hungarian, and Hungarians are known not to speak well other languages, so please apologize for any mistake or any terrible pronunciation of a word in English. Dear Lily, Julia, and Zizi, my granddaughter that's here, who represent my family, and dear colleagues and friends who represent my publishing world, as if they were my second family. Thank you all for taking the time out of your business routines to be here. My colleagues at Companhia das Letras deserve all the thanks, since this award is for them too. I have no other way to begin this speech than by telling you of my surprise when I received an email from Francesca Varotto, the publisher of Marsilio and a member of the jury for the Cesare De Michelis Prize, telling me that I'd been granted such a great distinction. A surprise that here becomes joy and gratitude. Gratitude to Luca De Michelis, son of Cesare De Michelis, and all the Michelis family. They created the prize as a way to recognize the work of publishers and to honor the memory of their father, a storied publisher who deserve every accolade. To the jury, who in a moment of distraction chose me as the laureate, I offer you my most heartfelt thanks. I would also like to thank Mr. Juergen Boss, president of the Frankfurt Book Fair, who joined forces with the prize, bringing its announcement to the most important occasion for publishing professionals. Let me continue with an interesting event. It involves one of the winners who preceded me, my friend Michael Krüger, here today, who was awarded the prize 2 years ago. Michael has always been a role model and example for me. 1 year, long enough ago that I no longer remember the date, Michael organized a conference on publishing in Berlin. Another good friend, Carol Brown-Janeway, who sadly is no longer with us, was tasked with coordinating a debate on literary publishing. The writer and publisher, the late Roberto Calasso, and I were invited to be on the panel. I had no idea what my fellow panelist was going to present, nor did he know what I had prepared. In the end, what we said could not have been more contradictory. Calasso told the story of two historical publishers, Kurt Wolff, born in Leipzig, and Aldo Manuzio, who, as it happens, was from Bassiano, but settled in Venice, the city this award comes from. His work dates from the end of the 15th century and the beginning of the 16th century. My fellow panelists explained that Manuzio pioneered the book as we know it today. He created a new format for publishing, allowing books to be portable, a kind of precursor to what we would become our paperbacks. He is also said to have invented italics, among other typographical innovations. He commissioned translations of numerous Greek texts and published great Italian classics. The book, in its modern format, leaves us eternally in debt to Manuzio. The other professional cited was Kurt Wolff, an expressionist publisher, as many refer to him, who created a publishing house so special and sophisticated that it would be difficult to compare it to any other of his time, or even to those of times to come. In his own way, he also invented literary publishing. His influence changed what we know as publishing to this day. He and his publishing house were so intertwined that it was as if they were one and the same. A publishing house who was a person, or a person who was a publishing house. Wolff had extremely good taste and the keenest cultural awareness. We all know how important he was in publishing Franz Kafka's works for the first time. Using these two examples, Calasso argued in his talk that publishing is an art, implying in my interpretation that he himself followed his path. The text he read was very, very well written, brilliant. My explanation couldn't have been more different. It was simple in style and as a literary narrative. It sought to explain why publishing is not an art, and why this term should be reserved only for the work of writers to whom we dedicate our lives. Publishing books can be summarized in broad strokes as uninterrupted acts of dedication to writers and readers. I wasn't able to find my old speech before I prepared this one, so I don't know how I managed to use Ivan Nabokov's lectures on literature and a few poems by Fernando Pessoa to defend my point of view. I was no doubt trying to lend some polish to the simple idea I had taken with me to Berlin, never suspecting that a friendly dispute awaited me there. I remember that morning in Berlin as I was writing these lines, to say that, although the style was rough, I still believe I was right. Publishing is not an art, but devotion. And devotion in the literary sense, not the religious, thanks God. By this, I don't mean to say that the publishers cited by Calasso, and Calasso himself, and those who preceded me in receiving this honor, shouldn't be seen as exceptions to the rule, but they are, as always, exceptions that prove the rule. There are artists working in publishing, but publishing in itself is not an art. I'm also certain that the colleagues who will succeed me in this honor will possibly prove once again that there are singular cases that my view hasn't taken into account. That is, they will disagree with me or prove me wrong even before they are chosen. As such, in receiving this prize, my role shall be that of a bridge between these few artist publishers, including Cesare De Michelis, and the thousands of publishers that I call us. In this role as a bridging publisher, I represent in this pulpit the women and men who dedicate their lives to the artistry of writers and to the imagination of readers. We are the first readers of an enormous quantity of emotions and vulnerabilities that accumulate in the time it takes to write a text. Before that, what the writer saw in front of him or her was an empty screen or a blank page. When we begin our work, we return to that moment, to the silence that precedes writing, a silence that will mark the creation of a narrative for months or years. Our profession is based on understanding this inaugural silence. The great thinker Carlo Ginzburg, son of the writer Natalia Ginzburg, when trying to give meaning to the work of historians, chose 3 different masters from other professions as examples to be followed. According to Ginzburg, historians should rely on an evidentiary method, that is, make their profession a search for clues or traces, as did each in his own way the great 19th century art expert Giovanni Morelli, Sigmund Freud, and Sherlock Holmes. Morelli was constantly called upon by museums and collectors to verify the authenticity of paintings. He said that Da Vinci's smiles or Perugino's skies were of little use in his work. To determine whether a painting was fake or real, the expert had to look to the details, to the hands and feet, to fingers and fold of dresses. That's why he cataloged different types of earlobes in Botticelli's paintings. For him, detail is much more difficult to plagiarize than the most characteristic features of a work of art. When creating psychoanalytic theory, Freud, a reader of Morelli, focused on symptoms to unravel mental illnesses or to delve deeper in the souls of men and women. Sherlock Holmes, Conan Doyle's beloved son, also solved mysteries through detail. For him, a dead man's ear could be much more useful than trying to find the motive of a crime. Ears mark family ancestry more than coats of arms. He sold off one of his most famous crimes only because ear shapes are strongly hereditary. I say this because, in my opinion, the method proposed by the historian serves publishers and editors perfectly. They must begin with the tiniest details of the text during the reader and making of a book in order to arrive at the essence, the whole. We are also the first people responsible for the integrity of a book. And integrity has two meanings, not only in Portuguese, but in English too. It means that something is complete or whole, and at the same time that it is upright and honest. A narrative written over many months or years needs someone to read it in the present, to feel whether time has affected it positively or negatively, whether everything that needed to be said is there, and whether the result honors the dignity of literature and the spirit of a work of art. God is in the details is a phrase we are too familiar with, attributed to the great art critic Aby Warburg and also to the Anglo-German architect Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. Although one specializes in art and the other in architecture, I'm sure that the statement could have been coined by a writer or publisher, or attributed to the literary work that define our lives. God is in the details. If we were to change the phrase a little to God is in what is singular, or God is in what is unique, the statement would apply only to artists, writers included. So, while we hunt for the details to lead us to the whole, writers, in addition to this, are forever seeking new narratives and ways of thinking that step out of the ordinary, creating language that is truly original. This is not to say that our mission is merely to tend to minor aspects of the text, but that it's through them that we arrive at the essence of literature, the heart of a novel, short story, or poem. Based on simple suggestions that I have given authors, some of them have only had a few extra hours of work. One rewrote his book over a period of 9 years. But there are more than just details in our lives. In addition to this, we publishers must know how to work with something fundamental to literature, the weight. It is found in books created by writers who manipulate time, opening paragraphs as if they were windows, only to close them later or even leave them open forever, rewarding readers with the suspension of real time and the delight of the wait. And the wait is today a political asset, a rare commodity in a world of radicalism, of hasty ideas and solutions. In general, we don't wait for bad news or tragedies, or even for the instant aggression of social media. It shows up unwelcome. That is why those who wait have a kind of optimism, of faith. Literature is therefore an exercise in waiting, created by writers for the suspension of the present during the act of reading, for a silent utopia where nothing happens but pure imagination. I have titled a book I am writing about my profession, The First Reader. In it, as here, I argue that we, editors and publishers, are above all the first readers of a literary text, the ones who work to ensure that the future dialogue between writer and reader flows smoothly. When I mentioned the title of my possible book to a colleague, he asked me, "Are you paying an homage to Riccardo Piglia?" I had completely forgotten about one of the books I am most proud of having published, called The Last Reader. In it, the late Piglia, one of the most important Argentinian writers of all time and a great friend, tells stories about writers as readers. The denomination The Last Readers, the reader, appears among the other things to refer to Jorge Luis Borges, who tried to read when he was already blind, staring hard at the pages, pushing his head towards the book, touching his nose on the paper. It also harks back to the famous photo of Che Guevara reading a book in a tree during a guerrilla war, suspending the time of an armed conflict in order to read. This same Guevara would later be shot dead in a classroom on whose blackboard were the words, "I can read." The last example I borrow from Piglia's book is that of Don Quixote, an avid reader who collected scraps of paper he found on the ground along his way to make one last book. Quixote read everything and experienced everything. He never read forever, however, chivalric romances, a genre in which he is a character, with one exception, a novel about a false Quixote. I shall end by reminding you that the profiles of the last readers, Borges, Quixote, and Che Guevara, created by a magnificent writer, give an epic dimension to the act of reading. The last reader is a hero. The first reader, on the other hand, is just a simple man. Thank you very much.
Now you stay here.
Okay.
Well, congratulations, Luiz. I'm happy to see you again. You look much younger than 10 years before. And so I heard that you are in a good mood, and we listened to your magnificent essay on the first and the last reader. And, but you come from Brazil, and Brazil is one of the biggest, largest countries with, I don't know, 250 million people. How much of them are reading books?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have the exact number, but illiteracy is one of the big problems we have. I would say that we have one of the highest rates of illiteracy in the world. We are a country with an enormous gap between poor and rich people. But the good thing to say, apart of the number that I cannot give you, is that this is changing. The government of Brazil in the democratic era, from Fernando Henrique Cardoso and Lula and Dilma Rousseff in the first part of his government before her impeachment, they invested a lot in reading. They were the biggest buyers of books in the world. They bought books to send to public libraries in schools, in poor schools, or even to send books to the poor children directly to their homes. They developed the most magnificent programs of distributing books for poor readers. My great friend Amos Oz, that probably you know very well too, had one of his books for young adults bought for public schools in a printing of 300,000 copies. He never had this in his life, and he went to Brazil to speak to the teachers that would use these books in the schools. So now what we see is that there is a young readership coming to the market. This is a portrait of Brazilian democracy with a gap during Bolsonaro times that really try to make people read more. We go to the book fairs or book festivals and we see young people wanting to read not exactly the books that we publish. Now Companhia publishes them also this kind of book for young readers, but that's what's very important. It's not what they are reading, it's that they are reading. So I answer you with a small note of optimism, saying we are in a very bad situation, but we are on a good way if these programs continue, if democracy in Brazil, if we have governments that are really democratic and don't want to fight against books.
And can you tell, that's very interesting for us, I think, and for me, but what is the result of that? Does it mean that you have an international list? Is it that people want to read textbooks or want to read or is it also literature? I mean, all your examples are from the highest literature, but that is not that's not the fact in truth in the readership.
Well, Michael, I began Companhia das Letras only publishing very good literature and non-fiction, and then we went to several areas like crime and adventure and cookbooks, but always very literary. With the changes in Brazilian politics, we saw that if we would continue only with these books, we would close our door to the new audience that was coming to the market. So now Companhia has 20 different imprints. Imprints that, if you ask me, are the books that we print in other imprints, not Companhia das Letras or Objetivo or Zahar, that are the three main imprints of literature and top non-fiction. Do I read this kind of book? Can I be an editor of this kind of book? No, but I'm very proud to do so, because then I can speak to the readership that is knocking on our door. And then they will read the books that we love and that we more than love, that we dedicate our lives to. Because what is literature or great literature and great essays if not the search for the best expression? It is democratic in itself, literature. If politics or people would care for the best expression between man and woman, we would live in a different world. But before that, we have to have the readers with us. And if we would be only publishing the literature that we love most and that represent the search of the best expression, we would close our doors to these readers. So, Companhia das Letras in print is intact. It is the strongest imprint of of our group. It is the heart of our group, but we are learning to speak with other languages, other literatures, and especially this is typical for Brazil. Probably in Germany, it's different. You don't have illiteracy, or you have a reader that learned in schools and is one step to the top literature. We don't have this situation in Brazil. And I see with great I'm moved to see in the book fairs girls of 16, 15, 17 years running against their women idols, writers, shouting like in a Beatlemania. And this is if I would look at this with a snob view or a snob eye, I would not be thinking that I want my country not to be illiterate.
We know here from translations, especially from Kurt Meyer-Clason, a lot of Brazilian poetry. But that was 30 years ago. So from Andrade to, I don't know, all the group was published here, and we read it with red ears and with lots of interest. But now I have the impression that the internalization, the globalization also of literature means that especially these small forms of essays, poetry, let's say the better part of literature, is becoming more and more, or disappears more and more. Is that true, or is it? Are you publishing poetry in Companhia?
No, we published a lot of poetry, and I don't want to bore you with my optimism, but
I'm happy. I'm happy. You know this famous word from the agent Andrew Wiley. I have seen very poor authors dying in graveyards without any flowers. I never have seen a poor publisher. So, and that means the publisher must have some optimism in order to go on publishing.
Yeah, in Brazil, the great classics of poetry, they are very well published. Carlos Drummond de Andrade, we published a few years ago the complete works, and now he's with another very good publishing house. Manuel Bandeira, João Cabral de Melo Neto, all the Vinícius de Moraes, most important classic poets are published nowadays. But what is really great is that we have a new generation of poets. Amazing. Of course, in my opinion, if one Brazilian writer could have won the Nobel Prize, would be a poet, because our poetry is really, really very good. And we would have to publish like more than 20 or 30 books of poetry to give voices to all the good new poets that are arriving in the Brazilian literature. We now publish more or less, I think, 12 new poets a year, only in our imprint Companhia das Letras. So I know of your love to poetry. I really love poetry. I don't know poetry as well as you, that are great specialists in poem. But I'm very proud to publish poets.
You quoted Gott ist im Detail, Marburg, and so on. Is the European Geisteswissenschaften, the European humanities, are they read in Brazil too?
Yeah.
So the European.
Yeah, of course. I think in the beginning of the opening of the Brazilian market, I would say I began to work with publishing in 78 or 79. At that time, I think the Brazilian the problem of the Brazilian publishers or publishing market was to be too international and don't look so much and don't work so much to discover new writers. Now it's completely different. We have a balance, but the Brazilian culture was always looking to Europe since a long time, since centuries, and even try to imitate the European culture. We didn't give attention in the early 19th century or in the 20th century, we didn't give a lot of attention to Brazilian culture. We gave only attention to foreign culture. When I began working at Brasiliense, my first job as an editor, we always looked only to Europe, not even the United States. The United States was only for bestseller publishing houses. My first contacts here in Frankfurt were German and French. I didn't meet you at that time because I was a young man of 26 years or 25, doing my job as an editor, trying to buy books from Le Sale or Gallimard or things like that. And the number of books that we published from Brazilians were really very weak. So it's not a problem of Brazil not to look at the European culture and not to be very updated with the best books from Europe. But now we have a good balance, which is really very good. I think one of the most important jobs I can do is to discover a new Brazilian writer and bring it here, to this palace here, to speak. You know, I spoke a lot about Brazilian writers to you. We discussed Guimarães Rosa. Remember, I think your former publishing house are redoing a translation of Grande Sertão Veredas. I was part of this, and I'm very proud because I really love Brazilian literature. I love all kinds of literatures, but Brazilian literature is what is under my skin or my blood. I cannot explain exactly.
Can you just briefly tell us about the book selling? Is there a huge distribution problem, or it's a huge country?
Yeah, you are very right. We have enormous distribution problems. We have a big weakness in the bookstore chains, and the number of bookstores is very low. And what's happening now is that Amazon is representing 50% of our sales, more or less, or even more, even near to 60%. There is one good thing in this, and the booksellers hate if I say so, but they reach every single city of the country. Apart from that, they are very controversial, and they are a risk to the small booksellers, which is not good. But we now created, for the first time, a second warehouse in the north of the country in order to distribute better our books. But yes, you are right. We don't have the number of strong booksellers that we need to have. And this is a big weakness of Brazil. It's a point that my optimism is not so high as the others I spoke to you, because the competition with Amazon is very difficult.
What is the role of the university and university bookshop? University is the main factor for knowledge and curiosity for literature, or is it something else?
No. I think the university presses are very good in Brazil. They are concentrated in São Paulo and Rio, or mainly in São Paulo. But you have also good university presses in other states of Brazil. And they do a very important job also with Brazilian classics and to publish the academic, the production of the academic teachers and professors in Brazil that, you know, a publishing house more devoted to market cannot do. But I don't see a difference between a book of 1,000 copies of printing than one of 100,000. They are both equally important.
Luiz, somebody told me that we have to stop. I just want to give an anecdote. 10 years ago, one of my last jobs at Hansa was signing a contract for the translation of the Grande Sertão. And I hope that in my lifetime,
I will see it.
the translation will be delivered. Everybody says Grande Sertão is even a more complex book than Ulysses by James Joyce. So I don't know if in the future this kind of complexity in literature will survive, but I'm pretty sure that you have to go back to your roots and to start again. You are only 68. 68, you are a young man. Thank you again for coming.
I'm coming from Japan, so